It is 8 o'clock. We are going to be starting now. My name is Marshall Bailey. I'm the executive director here at Leadership Initiatives. We're a 501c3 nonprofit sponsored by the Microsoft YouSpark program, the Starbucks Foundation, the International Youth Foundation, Global Giving, Test Rock International, and the Future First Foundation. What we do are specialized internships for amazing high school students like your sons and daughters. And our idea is to make sure that we give them a chance to understand things about the law, get experience in medicine, and experience in business development before they even go to college. We do this through our summer programs, which are done in conjunction with Georgetown University. And we do this through our year-long programs, which I think almost everyone on this call is doing. It's called our International Internship Program. Just say it up in front. If you ever hear a little girl crying, I have a daughter, and I'm working from home because it's Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So now that we've got that all out of the way, I want to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. And then we're going to get right to the questions, everybody. So Morgan, we're going to go with you first. Just introduce you, who you are, your relationship to Leadership Initiatives, and what college you go to.
All right. Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm the assistant director of the medical programs at Leadership Initiatives, and I go to Duke University. I'm a sophomore there.
Perfect. Gabby.
Hi, I'm Gabby Zeidler. I'm a freshman at George Washington University, and I'm the assistant director of the law programs at LI.
Perfect. Max.
Hi, I'm Max Derbyshire. I am the assistant director, of the youth development programs at Leadership Initiatives, and I am a junior at Northwestern University.
Perfect. And then Blake.
Hi, my name is Blake. I'm a sophomore at UCLA, and I'm the registration and accounts manager with Leadership Initiatives.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. All right. So attendees, what you're going to do is keep putting your questions in the Q&A section. I am going to go to it periodically and ask questions that all run in the same line. So just so everyone's on the same page, we got a bunch of questions when you signed up, and we have a bunch of questions coming in. And so what I'm going to do, if we're doing a bunch of admissions questions about financial aid, I'm going to get all the financial aid questions together. So if I skip your question for a minute, it's not that I'm not paying attention to it. It's just I want to keep everything thematically the same. Okay. So with that said, let's do our first couple of questions. Here's an easy one. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for meeting with us today. How do you think LI prepared you for your college experience? That's when I do want all of you to answer, but keep it to under a minute so we can get a bunch of the other questions in. Max, go first.
Yeah, very quickly. I was in the international internship program myself when I was in high school, and that was one of the focal things I talked about on my application. I also had a letter of recommendation from Marshall that was absolutely amazing. It was the best letter I received from anyone, teachers included. And with that experience and that letter of recommendation, just made my application just show how involved I was in caring for people and trying to change the world. And I think that really showed through to the admissions officers during the process.
Perfect. Blake.
I feel like the international internship program, and especially I eventually interned with Leadership Initiatives, really helped me because there's a big difference between college and high school in the amount of work you have to force yourself to do by yourself. And I feel like the internship program and having that discipline and like working on something where I'm sort of like having to do this with some sort of self-discipline really helped me prepare for having the self-discipline with my college classes, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Blake. Gabby.
So I did the international internship program in high school my last 2 years, and then I also did the law programs over the summer. But I think the international internship program really helped show that I was passionate about helping others, which was like a huge focal point in my application, and is kind of what I'm going to school for. So I think that really helped. And it also showed that I was dedicated, kind of like what Blake was saying, to doing something to help other people, not even in the country, but, all over the world. So Marshall also wrote me a letter of recommendation, which I thought was really, really strong because it just really showed that I was wanting to help people, and I was doing it not just for the college application, but because I wanted to.
Perfect. And then Morgan, and please also talk about what you're doing now with your internship.
Yeah, of course. So I completely agree with all those other things everyone said. But another big strength that I think I got from working with the medical programs and just LI in general is sort of the ability and communication skills to reach out to professionals in their fields and really just take that leap to talk to these doctors for the medical programs that are so impressive. That helped me reach out when I was looking for research to participate in at Duke. And then now, in addition to that, I'm doing a visiting scholarship with Dr. Giordano, working on some personal neuroscience research. So those communication skills and the ability to build a network have been huge.
And then Morgan, just to make sure everyone understands what that means, can you explain out of the entire United States how many students your age are doing something like this? I think Dr. Giordano said I think there's 20.
Yeah, what's really special about this is that if all goes to plan as it should, I'll be the first author on a research publication. And there are plenty of college students that are doing amazing research as research assistants and in different roles across the country. I'm even doing that in Duke, but this is a sort of special opportunity in that I'm at the forefront directing where the research goes, as opposed to just sort of helping out and assisting where necessary. So yeah, it's really a unique opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you, Morgan. The next one was ACT versus SAT. Which did you take? Where were your score-wise? No need to share information if you're not comfortable. And would you recommend taking both? 2 volunteers for this one. Max and then Blake.
I'll take this one, partially just because I work a lot with TestRocker, and they are definitely a very, very useful tool. I personally did not think I would want to take the SAT at all. It is definitely a certain type of person that's interested in the SAT. It's definitely people that are more STEM-minded, I think. I took the ACT only. I got a 34. Was my final score, 35 super score with all my tests combined. And I think it's useful to take each test once, especially before your junior year, just to get a feeling for which test you like more. I only took the PSAT and I just did not like it. The ACT, on the other hand, was very, very smooth for me. So take them early. I took my first test when I was just finished 9th grade. It gives you an idea of where you are, where you need to study, and then come junior year, you'll have at least 3 opportunities if you really want to raise your score, but they suggest not taking it more than like 2 or 3 times. And that's really all the scores you'll want to send to a college anyway.
Blake, follow up.
I did take both the SAT and ACT. My SAT score was around 1430. I think that was after I took 2. And my ACT score was 33. I do also recommend taking both. I took the SAT twice and then took the ACT to see how I felt, and I was comfortable with my score. But I feel like it's like Max said, take it once, see which one you like, and then you can focus your energy on studying for the one that you feel like suits you best.
Perfect. All right, I want to talk to everybody here. I'm sending this in the chat. It is linked to our benefits page. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, sharing my screen. So everybody, every parent, your child is available, has every one of these benefits available to them. I put the link in here. It's LIHIP /2020-benefits. So your son or daughter has access to SAT and ACT training through TestRocker. Our sponsors pay for this. This is a $1,600 to $1,700 a year program. It's both the SAT and ACT training. To sign up for it, all they have to do is hit Learn More and then click here to start using TestRocker today. It's a benefit in the program. I cannot recommend the college probability modeling enough, especially if you're applying to 10 or more schools. You need to know if it's worth your time to apply for that college. So our partners have spent an incredible amount of time over the last year updating college admissions and how they're looking at college admissions. We met with over 100 different college admissions officers over the last year. It was 144 total. This will give you your chances of getting into your top 10 colleges. You can update this every 3 months. It'll also show you what you need to work on, whether it's an SAT score, a GPA score, how the college is going to look at your applications. Summer scholarship programs for people who want to attend our summer programs. We give those out to international internship program students. There's more information there. For all of you seniors, college essays are one of the top ways they look at you. It is incredibly important. Do you have your college essays professionally edited? You have unlimited essays professionally edited. Please take the time to have them edited by our partners at University Connection. It's normally $350 an essay. Our sponsors are paying for the entire amount. Take advantage of it. Every student at Leadership Initiatives is entitled to letters of recommendation. Again, they're all brand new letters of rec. We have a review board making sure every letter of rec is original. I can't recommend this enough. We fly into our summer programs, colleges from all across the United States. At Georgetown, we do our online programs. We meet with them and bring them to our summer programs. We brought 30 different colleges to our summer programs this past summer so that they know who we are. They know about our letter of rec program. They know the caliber of students we recommend for college. I'll come back to real world assistance in a minute. We have a scholarship assistance program, which I know a lot of you want to know about. Resume editing for when you're applying for college. And then finally, community service. Everyone in our programs are entitled to it. They get 2 to 3 hours per week, depending what the assignment is. The final thing I really want to get across to everybody is the real world experience. When we met with college admissions officers, the one point of feedback they got due to COVID was that the thing they want to see the most are students who are devoted to a subject area. So these are students working on things for 2+ years with a real devotion. And the idea behind our international internship program allows students who do our law, our medical, or business programs the chance to continue it on through the school year. So when they're talking to a college admissions officer, it's not just a summer program they did, it's something they've done year round with a dedication to transforming lives across the world, which impresses college admissions officers. The final thing I want to say about our benefits program is because of COVID, a lot of colleges are discounting the spring semester of this year because high schools didn't know how to grade or deal with students properly. So almost every single college is counting your grades for your spring semester of 2020 at 25 to 50% of what they normally count it. Additionally, for the last decade, they've lowered how much SAT and ACT scores matter. This is going to be the first year where the curve has changed. It's now a V. So it's going up again. So SAT and ACT scores now matter more for the first time since like 2009. So it's important you take the SAT and the ACT and you're prepared. I just wanted to make sure, we're giving you that advice as much as possible. Next question. How can we include LI in our college application? Is it best included in the essay or part of the club section? Is LI understood by all colleges? So that's a great question, Christina. So you should include it no matter what. Like I said, we fly in colleges. So we've had Johns Hopkins, Georgetown, George Washington, American, University of Chicago, UCLA. They all come to our summer programs, to our undergraduate admission sessions. They know who we are. So it is understood on many of the major colleges across the country. One of our students received the top honors for Boston College this year to receive the presidential scholarship. So it's understood by most, but in the club section, we can send you a listing of how you should put it in there and how you talk about leadership initiatives. You can just email me. I will put my email in here in case you want to specifically know how to list that for a college admissions officer. Real quick, 4 people here. Did all of you list leadership initiatives as a club or something you did with us? Perfect. Did all of you talk about us in your essays? So raise your hand if you talked about us in your essays. Perfect. And then raise your hand if you talked about us when you were meeting with a college admissions officer. Perfect. All right. I'm saying that one's answered. How is your institution addressing the tuition rate in regards to COVID? What are some unique degrees outside of STEM degrees that might be unique to your university? What are the opportunities? So just to make sure we're on the same page, Leadership Initiatives is a after-school program. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. But for Leadership Initiatives, how we're addressing COVID is we're making sure all of our programs stay online. We're making sure all of our activities are online for the students. And we're working very, very hard to ensure that if they want to come to our summer programs, there's an online option. And it's going to be foreseeable for at least the next 2 to 5 years that we'll have online opportunities for any of our students to work with us over the summer. And throughout the school year, all of our programs will be online when you're talking to the business partners, the hospitals, the law firms. It's all online, so you don't have to leave your home to ensure that students have these unique opportunities. Hopefully that answers your question, Christine. And if it does not, you can type in follow-ups for me. Next one from Santa Desire. Hello, how has LI helped with your scholarship for colleges? How many offers did you receive? Raise your hand if you got a partial scholarship for college. Perfect. Max, did we help you with your essays? Do we help you in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, so at least for all the essays on my application, Leadership Initiatives had those edited through our partner. And the interesting thing, a lot of large colleges like Northwestern only have need-based financial aid, meaning that it's just based on your CSS profile that you fill out through the College Board and your FAFSA. But one like little loophole that kind of exists is what I did was I applied to Loyola, which is about 10 minutes down the street from Northwestern, and they give full scholarships for based on your ACT score. So I got a full ride to Loyola, and then I used my full ride at Loyola and at all of my other safety schools that I applied to, called the Northwestern admissions office, said that I can't afford it and that I might just go to Loyola where they're giving me full tuition, and I got mine increased to about 3/4 of tuition paid for. Instead of about half, which is it was before. So it was about a 25% increase in the amount that they were paying, which was really awesome. And they are a little flexible in that, even though they definitely do not advertise it.
Okay. Gabby, you received a scholarship, you said?
Yes, I have a scholarship through GW, but I also applied to a lot of outside scholarships. And I applied to a lot of community service-based scholarships because that was a lot of my background in high school. So I used LI as a huge part of like my community service, just because I did spend a lot of time each week working with the International Internship Program. So I used a lot of that for my essays, but I also had all of my college essays edited through our partners at LI.
And that's the part everyone I want to hit on. All things being equal, the one thing that'll make your son or daughter stand out are the college essays. That's why our sponsors pay for those to be edited. It's such a help when you take the time to make sure you stand out. You don't want the admissions officer being caught up by an adverb or a misplaced sentence because you're working all night trying to get those college applications done. Please use the service. It is very, 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 very helpful. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. What did you guys write your college essays about? And give them two each. Let's start with Morgan. Morgan, give them 2 of the essay topics and what did you write about?
Sure. So the first, or I guess main question on the Common App that I answered as my personal essay was sort of this broad question about kind of just what I would like to do with my life, sort of what I dream about for my future. And throughout all of the course of high school, thanks to LI and helping me figure this out, I was really, really dedicated to neuroscience. I'm now majoring in it. And so I actually wrote my essay about wanting to improve mental illness and mental health through neuroscience. And then I also wrote an essay about my work with leadership initiatives. And there were some smaller other prompts just sort of explaining more about like niche interests and why I wanted to attend Duke.
Perfect. Gabby.
My broad Common App question was just about like an experience or experiences that have shaped you. And so I chose a story from when I was in high school about how a teacher banned me from using pencils and how using a pen like made me realize that I don't have to be the perfectionist and that I was and stuff, because I was very, very I couldn't do my work. It got so bad that like I couldn't do my work anymore. So I just wrote about that and how like that kind of changed my perspective on everything. And then for some of my smaller essays, I used my work with leadership initiatives and how I one day hope to like use the law to help people and I want to focus more internationally. So I talked about like IP and how I hope to use all of that experience to help people on a more international level.
Perfect. Max.
My main Common App essay, it was a bit of a stretch. I did the prompt, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. And I wrote my essay on duvet covers and how to put on and take off a duvet cover, like over a comforter. Like I said, that one was definitely a risk. And then for some of my other essays, there was one on an idea or experience that you're excited about learning. And I wrote it on a Bach piece called The Well-Tempered Clavier. There was one that was about something meaningful to you, and I wrote a poem on peanut butter. So I definitely tried to go like a very unique and creative route, which sometimes pays off. It is definitely a risk though, so I don't necessarily recommend a lot of people do what I did.
Blake.
All right. So I applied to the UC system, obviously, and the way they do it is you write 4 small essays, and briefly, and so there's 8 prompts, 4 essays, and I did mine on LI, rock climbing, which is like my favorite sport, ASB that I was involved in, and biology, which was my favorite subject.
A couple things I want to go over with everybody. The personal essays, the people that are on the call. Max is right. What we're looking for, what most college admissions officers are looking for, is a way to see who you are. And to an extent, your writing ability, but more about what makes you unique. So for instance, seniors, don't write about how COVID ruined the last part of your junior year. They're going to get 8 million of those, and that's how it's not going to be exciting to them. They're going to want to have something that stands out. But if you don't like peanut butter, don't write about peanut butter just to be unique. The whole point is to show a passionate part about yourself. This is your one chance to open a window into who you are. And the most common mistake I see when we're reading these essays, when I'm talking to college admissions officers, the number one thing they tell me is students try to cram their whole life into a 500-word essay, and you can't do that. And so the best thing you can be, or parents, the best thing you can do is be an honest editor to your son or daughter and tell them if they're focusing an essay on one prompt, it's better to be amazing for one aspect of your life in that prompt and really describe that than to throw in 50,000 things that you did with just, here's the list of who I am. That's not what they want. They want you to describe why you're different, why this personal aspect of you is important, why you're an interesting person for that college, because they're trying to make a special makeup for that college. And unless you explain why you're special, they're not going to know how you fit into that equation. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Let's finish that one. How did you narrow down what schools you wanted to go to? So let's go with Gabby. How did you figure out what schools you wanted to go to?
So I'm from Las Vegas, and I knew that I no longer wanted to be in Las Vegas. So I started primarily looking at schools on the East Coast, and I had been to DC a couple of times, being for LI's programs at Georgetown. And then I'd also been there with my family one time. And I just really fell in love with the city. Like, I absolutely loved it. And so I knew that's where I wanted to be. But I also applied to some schools in Boston, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, just in case. So I kind of narrowed it down by location, which I know is not something, like, that's not something I recommend. Like, don't do that. You should pick schools that have, like, things based on your interests and stuff. But it just so happened that my interests, aligned with the schools and the place that I wanted to be at. So that's how I narrowed it down. Like, eventually I realized, like, DC was really the place that I wanted to be, and I shouldn't have applied to all the other schools that I applied to because it was a waste of my time. But
how many schools did you apply to?
13.
Perfect. I actually want to make sure everyone says that because I want to talk to everyone, all the attendees about that in a minute. Max, you go next.
I selected my schools just kind of based on, in the end, it was who gave me the most money. I had a list of schools that I really wanted to go to. It was Berkeley, Stanford, and Northwestern. I had a list of schools I'd be happy at, like the University of Minnesota, Pomona. And it really came down to how much. Berkeley was $65,000 a year versus Northwestern being 20. In the end, that's kind of a no-brainer decision, especially when you're deciding between those two schools. But when I was selecting which schools to apply to, touring them is an awesome way to get an idea of who the students are, what the student body is like. You can't really go tour places now, but they have plenty of online opportunities, and they also track it, so it helps you when you attend those. But I did not like the hyper competitive feeling of a lot of the Ivies, like Harvard and Yale and Princeton. And I really liked the more chill atmosphere of Northwestern. They had a really amazing program that I wanted to be a part of, the global health program. So it really was based on like who I fit with. When I got accepted, I went and toured places. I did like fly-in programs and stuff. And as soon as I got to Northwestern, I like enrolled the day that I arrived because I met a bunch of people that were fantastic, and I felt like there were people similar to me. So it's definitely, for me, it was completely based off of the people and the feel on campus over really anything else, and money, like I said.
Blake.
So I actually did the same thing as Gabby but sort of the opposite, in that I'm from California and I hate the cold weather and I love California and not want to leave California. I applied to 9 schools, 4 Cal States, 4 UCs, and Stanford, the most east which of being San Diego. So I really did not want to leave the coast of California. And I ended up making my actual decision because, well, I visited the campus. I knew I had wanted to come here, but I sort of had put myself off. Like, you don't really want to go to UCLA in case I didn't get in because I was really scared of that. But I came here and loved the campus, and I almost chose San Diego because I really wanted to be a marine bio major, and I applied as marine bio. But I'm really glad I chose a school that I felt like I would be most happy with and have the most success at, because now I'm an econ major and I would have way more success with that here. So, you never know.
Morgan.
I applied to Duke Early Decision, and then I also applied to 2 other schools with their early action programs. And I fell in love with Duke because I loved that they prioritized this collaboration over competition theme, especially in the pre-health track. And it was this nice balance of not being too many students, especially because I live in a really small town. I came from a very small high school, but having these major university resources available, and they just had so many programs that I really could see myself doing, and professors that I could see myself meeting. So I fell in love with Duke for all of those reasons. And I think
Morgan, how many schools did you end up applying to total?
so I applied to 3, but because it was Duke Early Decision, I ended up just having to withdraw my other applications.
And Gabby, what was your total?
13.
Blake, what was your total?
9.
And Max, what was yours? One more time for everybody.
Also 9.
So everybody on the call, Leadership Initiatives recommends 10 schools to apply to, especially if you're looking for an upper echelon school. The reason for that is you don't know what they're looking for. So for instance, when Max was applying to Northwestern, they may have had, they have special calculations of how many students they want from different states. So they may have been overflowing with students from Minnesota, where Max is from. And it wouldn't matter how good Max's application was, they still would have rejected him because they have all the Minnesota students that they possibly want. They do this with a number of different variables. So students on the call, it's really important you get this through your head. You might not get into the college of your dreams, and it's nothing to do with you, nothing at all. They just have the student body they want, and they don't want any more students from Connecticut because they got too many, or they have too many people that want to be science majors, or they have too many people who want to go into business. They have different subsets that they look to get into for their freshman class every single year to do a quote unquote diverse student body, and you might not be what they're looking for. Okay, so that's why we recommend 10 schools, because out of those 10 schools, you will probably get into one of the 10. We do this additionally because top tier schools have a low percentage rate of acceptance. They're always between 6% and 20% in the top tier schools. And obviously, if you're applying to 10, it drastically increases your odds, because one of those schools will probably be looking for you. Your GPA and SAT scores matter 110% along with your essays, but you also might be that component to the student body they're looking for. And there's no way to know if Harvard wants trombone players as opposed to saxophone players that year. That's not a joke, that's a real thing. And so you not knowing what the college is going to want means you should apply to more than one school. Again, if you do 10 grade applications, it'll drastically increase your odds, and that's what we strongly recommend. The other thing I want to talk about real quick that they had brought up are personal interest scores, or PI scores. So when you do a college virtual tour, when you talk to an admissions officer, they have a specialized code that they put in for your son or daughter that shows demonstrated interest. That's the other way, that's the other major term everyone uses, or DI scores. Demonstrated interest, again, is, have you emailed the college? Have you talked to college admissions officers? Have you done tours? Have you requested information? Are you on their mailing list? Do you open the emails when they send it to you? They look at all of that, and that factors into the decision. So if you're interested in a college, you have to show them that you're interested in the college. Additionally, then this part is super important. Going back to the essays, when you're writing for an essay for a college, the thing that is one of the most disqualifying things about college essays is if you have a general statement that you go, I want to go to college X, and it's the same things every time. College admissions officers can pick that out a mile away because it's their job. When you're writing a particular essay about why you want to go to a college, you need to make sure it's about that college. Like Morgan was talking about the small, the community-oriented stuff and how they all want to do this together. That is a thing specific to Duke. If you try to do that for Michigan State, they would laugh you out of the room. That is everybody. That's a giant college. There's no small community there in any way, shape, or form. It's very important that your essays are tailored to those colleges. So many students just change the name, and sometimes they forget to change the name, and then they are eliminated because of that. So please remember, you need to start showing people personal interest or demonstrated interest, depending on the college terminology you're using at the moment. It drastically helps you. And when you're writing the essays specifically about that college, and again, we recommend 10 schools. The other thing, and I know it's almost November 1st, no one freak out, it's totally fine. The earlier you turn in your application, the more time the admissions officers are going to look at it, the more time they're going to read your essays. I'm not saying spend all night, drink Red Bull and caffeine and get your college essays out tomorrow morning. That's crazy, don't do it. But the earlier you turn in your college admission, even if it's a couple days before the due date, you will get significantly more attention paid to your application. I cannot recommend that enough. Next question. What would you say the most difficult part of the college application process was, and what tips would you give? Let's do 2 people. Blake go first, and then I'll pick somebody else.
Really, I feel like obviously the essays are hard, but the most difficult for me was the waiting between like you apply in like mid-November and you don't get to find out until like March if you got in to anywhere even. And really like what happened for me was I really just like, I'll be happy anywhere. And realizing that was hard, but you know, getting that mentality in that like wherever you end up will be good for you and you'll be able to succeed anywhere. And then obviously the essays, but the more time you have to put into them, the better they'll be. Have the way I did it, and I recommend everyone doing it, is sit down and write like stream of thought type, and then you like revise it and make it like a nice formal essay shape. Have your best friends who are good at English revise it separately, so then they revise it, you update with their revisions, someone else, have a parent you know or a teacher you trust look at it, and then send it over to University Connection so they can have your best work to refine your best work, and then you can end up with the best essay possible.
Max, what was the hardest part for you?
The hardest part was definitely like submitting the application. I applied really early for all the schools, so I was done by like middle of October. And like just knowing when it's like done, because I sat down and I wrote my essay, just the whole thing in one day. I had it edited a bunch and I kept just like whittling it down. And I kept reviewing all of the different like supplemental essays. Like Stanford has 5 or 6 of them that you have to fill out that are just, some of them are even 1 sentence. And I kept just like picking those apart. After a while, I said, it's not going to get any better. I'm probably making it worse. And then I submitted it, and then I had to wait until January.
Gabby.
The hardest part for me was both turning it in and waiting. There was a school in Texas that I was applying to, mostly for my family, not because I wanted to go to Texas, but I was applying there, and the deadline wasn't until February 1st. And so because I knew the minute I hit submit, like that was it. Like I had no more say in anything to do with where I was going to school. I waited until the end of January to turn it in because I just like, I felt better, like still having control over it. But then like that waiting between, I guess it was like April, between like really December was when I guess November was when I turned in all the applications, like where I really wanted to go. It's like between November and April was really, really difficult for me.
Morgan.
I would say the hardest part for me was trying to narrow everything down within the word counts and within the Common App structure. I do not write very concisely, but then on top of that, I also just felt like it was hard to try and show the admissions counselors my whole identity and what I stand for and what I can contribute to this class in 750 words or less, and then a 1-page resume. And it just was hard to figure out how to prioritize which things could encompass most holistically like who I am as a person and what I could do within that class. So it took a lot of time editing and figuring out what I felt like could complete the picture for what I wanted to show.
So this is something I want you guys to answer for all the attendees. Morgan, how many weeks did you spend working on your Duke application?
I think I started writing my essay maybe the spring of my junior year and would find myself like messing around with the words to try and narrow things down for all of the months up until I submitted it. I think probably like around this week of that year that I was applying. So I just would constantly, like, wherever I could set up Google Docs on my phone and change word choice just on my phone when I was thinking about it in my free time. Whenever I had a moment to reflect on it, I would be messing around with it. So I would say probably 4 months leading up, but maybe that was a little excessive.
Okay, Gabby, how long did you spend on your GW application?
I first started writing the GW like specific essay in September because I knew that was like one of my top schools. And I didn't turn it in until the end of November. So however many months that is, like 4, which is maybe a little excessive, but.
Okay, Max.
The trend is excessive, which I think is probably the smartest thing to do. I started my Common App account in like February of my junior year, and had like the basic info filled out on the Common App already as soon as I could. Like all the easy stuff like your name, your social security, your parents' stuff. I got that out before I finished junior year. Then in June, when like the Common App essay prompts were like updated for the next thing, I wrote mine in one day and then just didn't touch it. And then in the end of August, I think is when the supplemental prompts came out, and I did all those. And then in September, I showed them to my teachers. I got 1 round of edits from them, and then I just sat on it until the middle of October. And definitely submitting early is a strategy. So submit as early as you can. They'll look at it when you submit it. They don't wait until January 1st to like start reading them.
Blake.
I made a poor decision in that I spent exactly 1 week working on my Stanford essay, being that that's the Common App essay, like Max said, like 5 paragraph ones, 3 paragraph ones, and like 10 sentence long questions. So it was a poor choice. I didn't get in there, so don't do what I did. But my UC one, I'm trying to think, because one of the blessings was one of my teachers, my English teacher, had us write college essays as our first English assignment. So it sort of helped me start that, even though I was still late. I probably started in like September. Probably a total of maybe like 30 hours, if I am thinking in like hours of writing it and revising. Because I would do like, okay, I wrote them all like 5 hours, and then every like couple days after, I'd have a friend look at it, spend like 2 hours fixing this part and 2 hours fixing this part, etc.
Well, anyone who's a senior right now, don't freak out. You're gonna be fine. Anyone who's a sophomore, junior, freshman, you're hearing from these individuals 4 months, 2 months is what I would recommend. You're spending time working on a different essay every single week. Ideally, you're turning in a new essay test to be edited every single week. So that way, when you're finalizing your application, you are ready to go. The essays are the most time-consuming part. Is that correct, everybody? By a mile. So if you're knocking out an essay a week or an essay every 2 weeks, and you start the summer of your junior year, which is what I strongly recommend, because if they start accepting applications in August and you turn it in September 1st, you are miles ahead of the other applicants. They're going to read all of your essays most likely. If you're turning it in, January 1st, they're going to spend a minute. It's crazy how fast they have to go through all those applications. So again, the earlier you turn it in, the better. Starting the summer of your junior year is what I would strongly recommend. Seniors right now who might be a little worried, it's just spending the time on it. If you've got one due November 1st, you're going to be fine. It's important you get it in. I would strongly recommend. They're reading them on that Friday still because it's their job. If you can get them in on the 29th, so this Thursday, that will help you. It's not a joke, because it goes steady, 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 and then it's like boom. like thousands of applications on that last day, and they are looking up, they're trying to get through as many as they can before the giant slump comes in. How long should a college resume be? Max, you're the liaison to University Connections. They say it's a page, right?
No more than a page, because once you start applying to college and start doing things in college, they don't care about what you did like in your freshman year of high school or anything beyond that. And I'm going to tell you, like, your job at McDonald's and all of your summer camp things that you do are not going to be as important. Only put what's important to what you want to do and what you want, the student you want to be at that university. So like 1 or 2 major activities like this program, the international internship program, is a great thing to put on there because you work on it all year. If you have a student job that shows, or like a job in high school, that's a really good thing to put, but really no more than like 2 experiences. List some awards. Like, I wouldn't even go in depth in listing out your AP classes. Like, that is not as important to them. They can see that on your transcript. So keep it to 1 page. Really use a lot of blank space on that page. It'll just make it look more clean. It'll show that you know what's important and what's not important. They know you do more than 2 things. So you really just want to make it clean and show them that you're mature enough to know this is the most important thing I did, and this is all that's actually that relevant to you.
Yes. So real quick, attendees, Max is saying is correct. It's 2, 3 things max, but it's expanding out what you did there and showing over time. So college admissions officers care about you caring about something because it shows that you are devoted to something long-term. So it's more important the number of years and the number of experiences than the number of things you did. So years and experience instead of things, quality instead of quantity. What is the maximum number of essays that Leadership Initiatives will edit? Just to confirm, it's our partners at University Connection that are editing them, and they will do an unlimited amount. That's correct, right, Max?
Yeah, they'll like edit unlimited essays, but they typically don't do more than 3 rounds of edits per essay.
Thank you.
You can get 3 back and forth with them per essay, but you can submit every single tiny piece of writing and every single essay idea you have. They just typically don't edit the same one more than 3 times. Perfect.
If I submit an essay to University Connection, when will it get back to me? It's typically 6 weeks, but I know their turnaround time's been faster, right, Max?
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 weeks is what we recommend you give that much time. If it's dire, you can reach out to Marshall and he'll help out. But lately it's been about 2 weeks for University Connection, but it's probably going to back up closer we get to the deadline.
If somebody is freaking out right now, please email me. My personal email is at the bottom. I'll call Kathy and I'll see what we can work out with the University Connections team. We're devoted to helping you guys. We want to make you, or we want to help you as much as we can get into college. So if there's an issue that comes up, just email us and we're going to try to work it out to the best of our ability. Is this recording going to be available again? Yes, we will email it to everybody and make sure you guys all have a chance to look this over and double check what I said. What would you say the most difficult part of the college application process was? We answered that. Okay, that was just a double. Oh, what SAT, ACT study tips do you recommend? Let's start with Blake. And then real quick, raise your hand if you guys used a test rocker. Okay, and then real quick, I just want to make sure all the attendees see this. Morgan, how many months did you study for the SAT/SAT?
So I took the SAT and I took it a couple times. So I don't know, definitely several months. I think from the first one,
More than 6 months?
probably not more than 6 months.
Okay, 5 to 6. Gabby, what about you?
So I took subject tests and like the regular SAT. I took my first SAT like the end of my junior year, and I really didn't, like, I studied but not that much for that one. And then I spent the summer in between my junior and senior year figuring out where my score was lacking, and then retook it again in August and like saw a huge improvement because I really focused on those parts that I was missing. So probably like 3 or 4 months like in total.
Okay. And then just to confirm, Gabby and Morgan, you did it periodically. So it was 2 hours on Monday, an hour on Tuesday, every other day. It wasn't 40 hours over 2 nights. You studied a little bit each night, which built up your experience and understanding, correct? Max?
Yeah, once I took my first ACT one after ninth grade, I did Test Rocker. I got the diagnostic. I learned what I needed to study more. And throughout those 2 years, I would just like occasionally go on it. But what was really helpful for me from Test Rocker is they pointed out what areas I was bad in. So then when I was in, for example, AP Language and Composition, I like learned all the grammar that I did not know. And then when I took the ACT, I got a 36 on the English section. So it not only is it helpful just for studying, but it shows you where you're lacking and where you're doing really well. And just when you're going through your classes that are preparing you for these tests, you can notice things more and just learn more effectively.
Perfect. And Blake?
I did not do as I should have, and that I wasn't really like the whole being prepared and ahead. I would sort of wait until like, okay, my SATs next month, I'm gonna study now. And then like the 3 weeks before my ACT, I just sort of like studied really hard for like the 2 weeks leading up to my ACT, which I definitely wouldn't recommend as a whole, in that you should definitely try to do the whole long-term prepare, take practice exams, but definitely better than nothing. So, you know, if you realize 3 weeks before your SAT or ACT that you haven't studied, don't think it's just too late. Just pretend it's like, if it's like if you have a midterm, you have to study for it. Doing that isn't going to make your score worse. It could potentially help you out a little bit, but definitely do better than I did.
I just want to follow up with that, but first, guys, I did put in the wrong email address. Blake, thank you for pointing that out. Here's my proper email address. And then the thing I want to make sure I reiterate that Blake said, it is the optimal way to do this is to set a probably 5 months, 6 months in advance, an hour every other night. You should treat it as a part-time job. Parents, if you have the ability to, whatever it is, to work to have your son or daughter practice through Test Rocker an hour every other night, that is measurably, they've done studies on it, the best way to help them increase their SAT or their ACT score. You can email us and we'll email you how many hours they practice and what they practice on, so you can know for a fact if your son or daughter is doing poorly. Students on the call, so sorry. Parents, this is really our best way to help you out, so you'll know if they're getting smarter or not, as I'm going to say that. And so you can help refocus them to make sure they're taking it seriously. We want to help you do that. If you're a senior right now on this call and you're taking the SATs and the next SAT or the next ACT, it's still good. It's still good to use it. It will teach you. The coolest thing about Test Rocker is it takes who you are, it figures out what you're doing right and wrong, and builds a specialized training component to get you over those hurdles. The one thing I want to say about Test Rocker that messes some students up is that, oh gosh, say Max is good at English but terrible at math. He needs to practice the math. There's, for whatever reason, because you're good at something, you're more inclined to continue to do that. You want to keep working on the English because it makes you feel better. Don't do that. Work on the hard stuff. Work on the things you're less good at, because this will help you increase your score. We cannot recommend that enough. Couple questions. How long will we have access to Test Rocker and all the college benefits? So every year you're in the International Internship Program, you have access to all the benefits. Say you're a freshman and you do the 2-year commitment, because it's a 2-year program, so you do it your sophomore year, you have access to all of the benefits until your senior year when you apply for college. The only caveat is you only get access to Test Rocker the number of years you've been in the International Internship Program. So if you're in the International Internship Program 2 years, that means you got 2 years of Test Rocker. And if you use it your freshman and sophomore year, you don't get access your junior year. Conversely, if you're in the program your freshman and sophomore year, but want to use it your junior and senior year, that's totally fine. That's what it's designed for. For Test Rocker, it's the amount of years you put in equal to the amount of free Test Rocker our sponsors will pay for you. All the other benefits, after you've completed that second year, you can use anytime you want. If you're a senior in your first year doing it, you have access to all the benefits. If you're a junior in your first year doing it, you have access to all of our benefits. When you're applying for college, you will have access to the SAT, the ACT training, the college essay review services. That will stay with you. Hopefully I've answered both of those questions. Just finish that there. If I'm undecided about choosing a major, how can I still figure out which school I should apply to? Anyone have any advice on this one? Gabby.
I still don't know what I want to do. So I applied as a political science major, but I won't be doing political science. So, I mean, like I've already changed my mind like 4 times. So I think it's not as big of a deal as to what major you apply to, but just have it be something that you're interested in at that point in time. Because yeah, at the end of my senior year, I was really interested in political science, and now I'm not. So it's just kind of, I mean, you can do with that what you will, but I mean, I applied something was I was interested in and showed that in my application. And I think that's where it's important, but not now I can change and do whatever I want within my university.
I
Blake.
I similarly, like I applied as a marine bio major. I even wrote an essay on bio. I wrote my Common App essay about how much I love marine bio. And before I even had the whatever it's called where you come in before, like not initiation, I can't think of the word for it. Yeah, orientation. I already changed to econ. And I know everyone will tell you like, oh, people change majors. And I was like, I know what I want. I'm not going to change my major. And I did. And everyone who I've met has said, I changed my major 3 times or etc. So it's not a big deal if you don't know what you want. But I think then, especially in that case, make sure the college that you're looking at has like a very well-rounded and is good in all like places. Like some schools are like, this school's amazing for marine bio, like UC San Diego, and their other stuff is good, but it's just not like compared to their marine bio program, it's not as good. So I'd say if you don't know, look for something that has everything sort of on par and all really good, if that makes sense.
Max, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I actually applied undecided, which sometimes it kind of depends on the school. Isn't necessarily the best idea. I've heard rumors that like applying undecided to the Northwestern Liberal Arts College is harder than applying as a biochem major in the School of Engineering. Sometimes they just don't accept many undecided people, but some schools like Pomona encourage you to apply as an undecided major because they know that you're going to change it. So it kind of depends. If you're going into like an engineering field, a STEM field, you're applying to a School of Engineering at any school, I would suggest having a major because it'll in the end be easier. For liberal arts colleges, applying as undecided and having an application that reflects how many things you're interested in. My application was all over the place. And that's kind of who I am as a person. And I applied as undecided and it worked very well for me, obviously. And I've transferred schools within Northwestern. I've declared majors so many times during my first 2 years here. So it is super flexible and colleges know that. So if you're truly undecided, apply undecided, honestly.
So another question, since many schools are test optional this year, if my score is not very great, do you recommend I still send them? So I want to answer that one. So what you can do, say you're applying to, I don't know, American University, and you look on, you can go online, you can see where their average test score is. If it's the 85th percentile and your SAT score is below the 85th percentile, you do not want to send it because it hurts your chance of getting in. Conversely, if their average is the 85th percentile and you're testing in the 92nd percentile, you want to send that score because it puts you above the average student applying to that college. So the trick on this is looking at the college you want to apply to, see what the average acceptance score is. And if your score is above that average acceptance score, you 100% want to turn that in. Other thing that I think a lot of people get caught up in the weeds. So Gabby, you were telling everyone you did the SAT secondary test, correct?
Yes, I took 3 subject tests.
Yeah, 3 subject tests. So real quick, if you're not in the top tier scores on the SAT, doing the subject tests is pointless. And I want to be very blunt. If you have a bad SAT score or ACT score, do not take a subject 2 test. Spend the time studying for the general ACT or SAT. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot twice. Okay? I want to make sure that's very clear. All right, that's done. Okay, how important are the after-school clubs since everything is virtual? So they're very important. If you can show demonstrated interest right now, so just so everyone on the parents and students know, normally we used to only do a business program during the school year. Because of COVID-19, we went to our sponsors and we're like, guys, how can we help students more? you know, what were you willing to fund? And they're like, well, go talk to college admissions officers. So I spent all of spring and summer talking to college admissions officers, and they said the best way to help our students was to expand from business programs year-round to business, law, and medicine program year-round. So students can show demonstrated interest, gain skill sets most high school students their age don't have when applying for their colleges. Is doing LI as the only extracurricular enough? Personally, if you showcase 1 to 3 things, that's more than enough. So if you're just doing LI, I would recommend doing at least one additional thing, even if it's doing our internship program or our summer program or your school's whatever program or student body. I don't know if there's online student council right now or online National Honor Society, but I would recommend at least one more thing. It's good to show a little bit of a diversity, but you don't want to be the president of your school, the president of your grade, the president of your SAD club, the president of your National Honor Society. It dilutes who you are as an individual and makes your school seem slow, okay? At the same time, if you make up 18 different clubs to be in charge of, that is also a strong negative. College admissions officers hate that. But if you do like leadership initiatives and then you realize at your school you love chess and there's no chess club, and you make it your sophomore year and you're the head of the chess club for 3 years and you've shown you've grown from 5 students the first year to 50 students by your third year, college admissions officers love that because it shows demonstrated interest, dedication, and your ability to make something grow and become better than when you found it. So there's nothing wrong with making your own club right now, especially with everything being online. There's nothing wrong with having a dedication. There was a student, so one of our board members is Amin Muhammad. He's the lead recruitment officer for Harvard University's medical school. He used to be the lead recruitment officer for Harvard University. There was a student who made it's a video game, a StarCraft club. And he became like a nationally ranked player, and that was his extracurricular activity. He didn't do student council, he just played a video game really well. But he showed how he built up like his ability and his dedication to that and how it taught him like understanding strategy, and he got in off of that. You need to pick out something you care about, demonstrate how you care about it, demonstrate growth, and that's the key. So I would recommend 2, 3 things max. After 3, they don't care anymore. They just think it's gibberish. Okay, that one's answered.
Also, I feel like regarding to like caring about something, it's something you don't really think about, but when you're writing your essays, if you care about the subject you're writing about, like the essay just reads so much better and you can see more about who you are. So like if you're deciding between like this thing that you think like, okay, maybe they'll think this is more professional and cool, or this sport that I care about, or this like activity that I care about with my entire being, maybe that like, even though that activity might not have like the professional standing you're thinking, being able to convey who you are and talk about it and show who you are through how much you love that thing can be really good.
Thank you, Blake. Where are we at here? What if you get a one-off poor grade, like a C for a course in a tri-semester? How much will this impact your ability to get into a top college? So just so we're on the same page, some colleges look for 1 bad grade. It's if you get 6 bad grades is where they like write you off. It's realistically it's 3. But if you have a one-off, a one, like just, hey, you messed up one time, they consider that a growth, especially if your essays about it, like say, for whatever reason, your parents went through a hard time or you went through a hard time, or there's a reason behind it. That is a great subject for your essay, explaining how you grew from it. Or maybe you just had a bad teacher or a teacher who didn't get you. That's a great way to use an essay to not only explain it, but show how character growth and what made you stronger as an individual. So a one-off isn't going to knock you out completely of contention. It can be seen as a sign of growth. It depends how you spin it. Again, it's if you have consistently bad grades, that hurts you. Now, for everyone on this call, this part is super important. The grades that matter most are your sophomore and junior year. Your freshman is very important too, but it's at junior year's grades that they really look at, especially second semester junior year. And you always, 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 always want your grades going on an upward slope, not a downward slope. Like that's not a joke. If you have a downward slope for your grades, that is a red flag for every single college admissions officer. It is better to start out getting C's and finish your junior with all A's than to start with all A's and finish with all C's. because it shows, you know, that you want to be a better student instead of you all of a sudden stop caring about school. So you can have a bad semester your sophomore or even the freshman year of your junior year. It's that second semester junior year, you got to make sure no matter what, you're ending on the highest point of your career, because that's what they're going to be looking at. That one's answered.
Marshall, really quick to add on to that
Please.
too. What people don't often remember is that your counselor also writes a recommendation. So the Common App requires it, even if you don't have a college counselor. My school did not have college counselors. We just had school counselors that took care of college stuff. But one really smart thing to do is to meet with your counselor pretty regularly. And if you have a bad grade, talk to your counselor about why, because your counselor sends your transcripts and they send a school profile as well and a letter of rec, and they can write in there about what went wrong or just like vouch for you just being such a good student that went through a hard time. If your school counselor is well informed and they want to hear about these things, they know exactly what to write and how to frame that and how to use that as almost to your advantage in their letter.
Thank you, Max. Gabby, yes.
Also, same thing. Yes, meet with your counselors. Like I was really good. Like I saw my counselor all the time, which was really important. But also, if you have like a trusted teacher, like if you don't feel comfortable going to your counselor for any reason, if you have a trusted teacher that you are going to ask to write you a letter of rec, also talk to them about that hard time. And if that was the class that you ended up getting a C in, talk to that teacher. And if you've had that teacher over multiple years, really just explain what was going on, and they can frame that as well in a more positive light than you just had a C.
That's a great point. Thank you, Gabby. If my ACT, SAT score is not in the 75th percentile for the test optional school I'm applying to, should I take the test again or focus on perfecting my application? So if the school's average entrance is above the 75th percentile, you need to either not submit it or, more importantly, study, practice, and get above get above whatever their average is. Don't turn it in if your average is below that school's average. So right now you're at 75th percentile, school's at the 85th, make sure you're on the 85th or 86th percentile. Otherwise, perfect your application. Next, should you have multiple letters of recommendation? Yes, we recommend 2. Some people turn in 3 and that's fine. So just, I want to take a second for this. At 3, some college admissions officers will be, there's 3, I'm not reading them, or they'll randomly select 2 to read or 1 to read. 2 is ideally what you want because you're not asking too much of a college admissions officer, but at 3, you're overloading them. They only have literally it's minutes. It's 8 minutes on average to look over your entire application. So remember that. Okay. Can my sophomore teacher write a letter of recommendation? They can, but you don't want your freshman one. You don't want anyone 8th grade and below doing it. We almost always recommend juniors, your junior teacher. If you're in your senior year, it should be a junior teacher, or potentially a sophomore teacher. If they're going to write it 10 times better than your junior teacher, yes, of course, especially if they're going to speak to your impact on the school during your junior year, but up until your senior year, yes, do that definitely. But if it's just going to be like, hey, John was in my math class that sophomore year and sophomore year was great, that's not what you want. But if you think it's going to be head and shoulders above any teacher your junior year and they can speak to what you accomplished in your junior year, then the answer is yes. Write my Common App essay in. Okay, Max, Gabby, Blake, Morgan, your thoughts. If I write my Common App essay on an imagination story, do you believe that's too cliche?
I'm just based on writing an imaginary story, I'm going to say yes. You have to.
I think that, Marshall, I think it says immigration.
Oh my God, Blake, thank you. Oh, it's been a long day. Oh my gosh, if I wrote my Common App essay on an immigration story, oh wow, that's a good question.
I don't think an immigration story would be too cliche.
No, not at all.
Don't play into cliches when you're writing it. I would just be very, very honest with your experience. Try not to fit into some sort of narrative arc of American dream immigration story, unless that is what you authentically felt and felt it to be, because they obviously get a lot of stories, a lot of immigration stories, because that's one thing that really affected your experience in our education system. Like have a completely different experience than most other students. And so colleges want to hear about that, but they don't want to see the same thing over and over again. And you have your own unique story. So just be authentic to yourself and don't try to fit into any sort of thing. Like, let's say you didn't really notice that much of an impact. Write about that. Don't try to like exaggerate things, because colleges can see that and do pick up on that.
Blake, thank you for catching that. Sorry. Marshall's reading score, not the highest at the moment. Okay, next one. Most test optional schools say not sending a score won't put you at a disadvantage. How true is that? Not true. So if your score is above that school's average, or it's in the 90th percentile, depending on the school, or the 95th percentile, sending in that score will increase your odds, especially right now due to COVID, because they have so many less things to look at, such as extracurricular activities. So a lot of schools say it. Realistically, though, if you've got a good score, it will drastically increase your chances. We strongly recommend you turn that in. Do you recommend filling all 10 slots of the activities section of the Common App? Max, as our liaison to University Connection, please answer that for them.
No, because you don't have enough time to do 10 things well. So 5 or 6 is a really good place to be in, especially you fill in the number of hours you do. I wouldn't go more than like 8. Especially like if it's things that you really like, if you did an hour a month on it, they don't care, unless you were like performing open heart surgery for that 1 hour. Like only put what's important and relevant, and don't try to fit everything. If you can really identify 2 and even 3 like subject areas you're really interested in, like if you did, like I did model UN, model legislator, model assembly, like I did a bunch of mock government stuff, and I put all of that in there because it shows that I'm interested in one thing specifically. So try to tailor in like 2 interests throughout like 6 activities. Don't just put them in because you want more.
Yep, that's the perfect answer. Thank you, Max. Next one. Do admissions officers have higher standards for students from competitive high schools? My high school has 36 AP classes and all students are really dedicated. Are we expected to take as many of those AP classes as we can? So this is a 2-part question. The first is, yes, colleges have their own probability models. So for instance, I went to Paw Paw High School, a very small town in Michigan. I had straight A's, would not be as good as Blake with a B average from her high school in California. It's just because her school is better than mine. They have more opportunities, more AP classes, more everything. So every college is going to look specifically at your college, or so your high school, and they're going to have their own modeling for the type of student they've let in before from your high school and how they did compared to another student's high school. So right off the bat, if you're in a competitive high school, you're already doing better than some other high schools across the United States. But that's again where the SAT and the ACT is supposed to be, help you level the playing field, students from places like Paw Paw. Next, are we expected to take as many of those AP classes as we can? No, because it'll hurt your GPA, it'll hurt your ability to do extracurriculars, it'll take away from your overall person. You should take the AP classes that you know you're going to excel in. If you take an out there class that you're not sure you're going to do well in, understand it might hurt your chances for that college. But if it's, like I said, if it's a reach class, make sure you're willing to write about that on your essay or explain it, on your college application. Anyone else want to add to this? Gabby.
I would also take classes, if there's any AP classes that match your interests, like if you are really big, you want to be an engineer, then yeah, you should probably take calculus and physics if your school offers it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so like that's kind of like between that and like wanting to do law, that was what my college application was really based on. So I took classes from all over, and it was kind of expected at my school, which I guess I maybe didn't need to do. But I think that if you like are doing it to find your interests or doing it because you're interested in something, even if maybe your grade isn't an A+ like the entire time, I think that that'll show at least that you're dedicated to that subject. But Marshall can speak more to that than I can.
No, that was good, Gabby. Okay, the next question. My sister went through a really hard time during COVID-19, adopted reflecting a major health issue, schizophrenia, etc. Over the past 6 months, this has truly changed my life as I was her best friend. Is this too cliche? Not at all. No, that's fine. Next, my school does not have any AP classes and doesn't have a weighted GPA. Will this negatively affect my chances of getting into high level colleges? Real quick, dirty secret that it's going to depress people that have, you know, the weighted GPA. The colleges delete all of that when you're applying. They literally have a mathematical equation that tells you how well you did at your school. So if you have a 4.0 and it's through a weighted GPA, they know it's fake. Not that it's fake, so I don't want anyone to have hurt feelings right now, but they know what it really is in the real world without you basically being able to make up for a mistake. All colleges have this for every single high school. That's why they send your transcripts. It says on there if you use a weighted GPA system, and they remove that when you're applying for college. They know exactly what your scores are, so that will not negatively affect you in any way, shape, or form. If I'm not in the top 10% of my class at a very competitive high school, how much does that hurt my chances of getting into a T20 school? Max, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so the weird thing about competitive high schools is I know 10 kids that went to New Trier High School up the street. I know a ton of kids that went to UChicago Latin School that go to Northwestern, a ton of kids that went to North Shore County Day School, the big private schools on the East Coast. They accept, for those schools, they'll accept 30 kids in one school. For my high school, I was the only person that was accepted. So if you go to a competitive school, they know that there's a lot of people that are super smart that are going to be going to Harvard and Stanford and Yale that won't necessarily go to the, you know, school that you're picking in the T20. So they are aware. They want you for going. They know you're well prepared to go to their school, having gone to a competitive high school, and they know that they're going to have to admit a lot of people from that high school to get a small fraction because they're all applying to the best colleges. They have great college counselors, probably private college counselors that you're competing against. So they will accept a lot of kids from your high school. So you don't necessarily need to worry about being the smartest kid in your school. If you go to a small high school, that's definitely more important thing to be. But in a competitive school, they will accept a lot of students.
Perfect. Thoughts on IB versus AP? What are colleges' thoughts? Thanks. You guys, who wants to answer that? Anybody?
My school didn't offer IB, so I can't attest to that. But I mean, I've heard really great things about how it prepared people for college courses and that it looks really good because it's pretty rigorous, I imagine.
Yeah, I was also not in an IB program, but I know a lot of people that were. APs are definitely a lot more helpful because I feel like they more directly relate to credits once you get to campus. But IB is definitely a much more rigorous, like much more difficult program to make it through, especially as you're like trying to, petition for your final IB diploma and all that jazz. So IB is definitely more for rigor and just helping you stand out in the crowd than it necessarily is for translating directly into college credits, is at least my understanding.
Yeah, so I'm gonna latch onto what Max was saying. When you're applying for college, so here's the thing. If they only offer IB classes where you go to school, take the IB classes. If they offer both, the AP will allow you to have credits going into college, but more importantly, it's more diverse, and the colleges you can apply it to that college application essentially. What I'm saying is, it's easier to showcase where you're at with an AP. It's more diverse, so you can show your a more diverse sense of interests when you're applying for college. Hopefully, I answered that okay. Next, if we take the opportunity to take dual enrollment classes, should we take these classes? Answer is yes. Easy enough. Okay, we answered that one. When colleges ask what other colleges you're looking at, should you be completely honest or make it seem like that school is in your top 3? So this is where demonstrated interest or personal interest comes in. You need to be clicking on all their emails. You need to be doing the virtual tours. So there are multiple students that we've had who got into, say, Harvard, but didn't get into University of Chicago. And the reason for that is because the University of Chicago knew they didn't really want to go there. that it was an Ivy League school and they were a second thought, and it hurts when they're reporting their percentage of students who they accept, who accept their invitations. And so if they know you're a student who's not truly interested in your school, they will cut you on that. So you should say it's in your top, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. You need to say it's your top 3. It doesn't matter if it's your 15th school, it should be your top 3, but you gotta back it up. You gotta do that tour, you gotta meet with the admissions officer, you gotta go to their night seminars so you learn about the college, so you're showing that demonstrated interest. Otherwise they know you're gonna be lying, and then they're just gonna cut you anyway. So it's pointless to say you're in the top 3 unless you're gonna do the demonstrated interest points to make sure that they truly believe that you think their school is a top 3. So yes.
To really hit this home, the president of Northwestern's an economist, and he also has been president of other colleges and likes to expose other presidents and other colleges. Basically how it works is it's just like an economic model where they have a yield protect model where they basically run a calculation and they say, this person clicked on this and did this and did this and is interested in this. What's the chance that they're going to say yes if we offer them admission? Because ideally what colleges want to do is accept the smallest number of people and have all of them admit. Then their acceptance rate is like 1% and they go up to the US best ranking, the #1 college. So they're trying to admit kids that will say yes to their admission because that saves them money, makes them look better, makes you look more competitive, because it is, once you get to like the top 20 colleges, they all kind of lie and fudge their numbers to get their rankings. And so it's really like they're just really trying to accept the student that they think is going to say yes, is their whole purpose. So if you can hit all those points, when they calculate it, they're going to get a very high prediction response on their yield protect model, and they'll accept you.
Also, on the note of demonstrated interest, a really easy starting point, in addition to just opening the emails and doing that sort of thing, is following the accounts on your social medias.
Thank you, Morgan.
I followed Duke on my Instagram and all sorts of Duke affiliated pages pretty early on in the search process. And like subconsciously scrolling through my feed, I was getting input about what great accomplishments and activities and events are happening on Duke's campus well in advance. So then when I sat down to write my essays about why the school mattered to me and I didn't want to write something generic, I was able to actually like drop names and specific things because I had been hearing about these events online that I wanted to be participating in.
Perfect.
Really quickly, I sent a link in the chat to an article by our president that just basically like explains the whole process and how they make their decision. And I wish I would have read this when I was applying, because it just makes it like it down to a calculation and you can hit all the things that they want. So it's an interesting article to read.
Perfect. Real quick, one student writes, can you expand on what you said about student council and NHS, Marshall? It really concerned me. Is it really not that important? I'm president of the student council and thinking of joining NHS, haha. What I was saying, just so we're clear, if you're the president of more than 2 things at your high school, it starts to work negatively for you. So there's nothing wrong with like doing multiple things at your high school. That's awesome. Congratulations. But if you are the president of more than 2 things, it's going to seem like no one else is either interested in your high school or that you're not as focused on 1 or 2 attainable goals. So that's awesome that you're the president of your student council and you want to join the National Honor Society. But if you then did SAD and Key Club and something else and became the president, at a certain point, the president of X stops losing its meaning. Just to make sure we're all on the same page. Hopefully that answered your question.
Wait, just to add on that a little bit, I went to a really small school and most people were involved in a lot of things. Like my soccer coach told me I was chosen to be captain because of my good morale. So if you have a lot of things that traditionally should go on a resume, that doesn't mean that necessarily you need to put them on there. But also it can be helpful if you do have a lot of things to be able to frame them in sort of a trend. So I was involved in a lot, but I was able to depict it about how they all sort of came back to this love of science and wanting to go into medicine. So I guess part of dealing with a lot of extracurriculars is figuring out how to show like one clear focus so that you have that dedication as opposed to just like a million different things going on.
Perfect. We're on our last 10 minutes, everybody, so we're on the same page. Some colleges claim not to have demonstrated interest. How true is this? Does demonstrated interest really not matter for those colleges? I don't know of a college no, they're lying to you. Yeah,
They are trying to make money to some extent, and so they're not gonna like not do something that doesn't benefit them for no clear purpose.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I mean, with tons of college admissions officers, I take them out to dinner, I talk to them, I try to understand their thinking. They all care about demonstrated interest. Anyone who tells you not is lying. Yeah. If we have different interests such as medical interests as well as interest in speech and debate, would those be okay interests to include in an application? 100%. Real quick, just to give them an example, Gabby, what interest did you say you had on your application? Top 2, 3?
I focused on community service and law, but I was also a technology major. Like I have basically an AA, like almost an AA in like IT networking. So I also kind of focused on that, but I focused on how I used that to strengthen like my legal knowledge and my community service.
Like,
so even though I was involved in it, it wasn't like.
No, yeah. And then Morgan, you did business and medical stuff all throughout high school. Blake?
I talked about my interest in biology, as well as I think I focused on leadership because I was in ASB for 4 years. And so I sort of focused on that as like my large commitment and interest.
And Max, real quick?
I did like political science, government justice thing, sociology, like public health, and then music because I applied as a music major everywhere as well.
Perfect. My essay is about assimilation and judgment through my art. Is that a good topic? Yes, as long as it's interesting. So I picked this one so we could just expand upon the question a little bit more. There's a lot of interesting subjects, but for a subject to stay interesting, you have to make sure your essay is interesting. So just because something's deep to you doesn't mean it's deep to the person reading your essay. And this is where criticism comes in. The best college essays are shared, and you receive feedback from people that aren't your mom and dad, because people are honest with you when they don't have to live with you. And they want to make sure that they're working with you to get the best product. So yes, that's a good, almost any topic can be good as long as it's not a cliche and as long as it's well written. Okay. I'm a junior in high school and I don't have any AP classes. I'm taking dual enrollment, and I heard that is better than taking AP classes. Is that it's best for where you're at. So colleges understand the opportunities that are made available to you. So you need to take the best choices that are around you. Max, do you want to expand upon that for a second?
Yeah, my school had very few APs. I took 5 in total, which is basically all of them. And then my senior year, I only took class at a local university. And the caveat is like the AP is very standardized curriculum, so they know it's rigorous. And like with some community colleges versus some state and local colleges and public colleges, they're all they differ. But one thing that colleges really do like is to see you took a college class, because they're very different than high school classes. In a dual enrollment class versus an AP class, they're completely different. So being able to show that you were survived and even thrived in a college class or like a full year of college classes, they see that and they say, okay, this person's going to survive going to college at least. They're not going to freak out at the transition. So it's not standardized. It doesn't necessarily show you're smarter, but it shows you're a better student ultimately.
Thank you, Max. Would it be appropriate to reach out to a local college professor and ask to research with him or her as a way to show strong interest? Yes, do that, 100%. Okay. If I'm interested in the medical field and currently focused on community service and STEM activities, should I also include my 2 varsity sports yes, include your 2 varsity sports. Okay. If I volunteered at a hospital for 100 hours, should I add this as an activity on the Common App? If I did it for only 1 summer, yes, 100%. Now we're knocking these right out, guys. We're at 41 answered questions. Would you recommend students to share essays with other students for critique? I've heard to not. Yeah, some students might copy your essays, and not every student, has a mastery of the English language. So I think it's more important to share it with people who are going to properly evaluate your essay. But if it's like a personal thing and you want to make sure you're reaching out and getting that start to it, yeah, 100%. You can share it with your friends or other students. But the whole reason we have this service, and this is the thing I want to make sure I get across to all the parents, Our sponsors pay this company to tell your sons and daughters the honest truth. Some of the other people you pay, they are nicer to you because they want you to do another essay through them. And if they insult your son or daughter or tell them their essay is stupid, your son or daughter might not come back to them, so it's a negative business interest for them. The coolest thing about what our sponsors do is there's a clause for them to be honest with your son or daughter. So they don't care. It could be, they could say, this is the stupidest essay I've ever read in my life. It doesn't hurt them, they're still getting paid. The whole point is they're supposed to be honest with your son or daughter. So that's why we do this. It's the blunt honesty and telling you if your essay is dumb, from people that have helped students get into the top schools in the country. That's why we do it this way. It doesn't hurt them to not be honest with you. So I would strongly recommend, instead of sharing it with your friend, to use our service. That's the whole point of why they pay for that.
I think it also depends on who your friends are. Like, I know I have a couple friends who were like the 100% in AP Lang and AP Lit, and they're like masterful writers. And even when I wrote essays for school, we would share essays. So I wanted their opinions because I trust their like linguistic opinion. But I definitely also have friends who think they're really good at English, and I know they're not that great at English. And so I'm like, just don't give it to your friend who is not good at English if that, not to be offensive, but you know.
Oh, perfect. All right, so next question with 5 minutes left. What is the most reliable website to get stats on ACT scores and GPA for specific colleges? Do any of you have a recommendation that you guys used? Gabby?
I would go to the college website because a lot of times you can find it on there. And that's probably the most reliable because a lot of the websites I found like didn't match up with what the school was saying and what the school like website was saying. So I would check with the school, but if you can't find anything on the school, like anything will work.
I would definitely steer away from the sort of like College Confidential or Reddit or whatever feeds that allow people to just comment their opinions on it. It becomes really, really hard to navigate whether any of it's true. And it also forces you to really compare yourself with other students. And I wouldn't recommend that as a positive thing.
Perfect. Okay. Is it bad if we don't have all A's in our AP classes? No, the whole point of an AP class is to show you growing as an individual. Is it hard to get research in the medical field at the place? Oh, it is hard to get research in the medical field, the place where I live. Would shadowing a physician be beneficial for my application? Yes, 100,000,000%. My school doesn't allow its students to take APs until your junior year. I know that I want to take at least 6, but it will make my workload junior and senior heavier than usual. Okay, it's okay to do that, but if it's going to hurt your grade point average, like, you're taking a risk. So you want to keep good grades, but also show that you're trying harder to advance yourself as an individual. So it's a balancing act. Everyone agree with that, essentially?
I feel like also when Marshall says like hurt your grades, like it's different if you get like a B+ in an AP class. That's definitely better than an A in a like not AP class of the same subject, because it shows you're pushing yourself. But if you're getting a C- or like it shows different. It shows that you didn't really understand what was going on versus you tried really hard, basically got it, and pushed yourself. So it's like depending on how well you think you can do.
Perfect. So my extracurriculars focus mainly on cultural diversity and community service, but I intend on majoring in the sciences. Since these activities don't really match my major, would that hurt my application? Absolutely not. It improves it. Max, do you want to add to that real quick?
Find the intersection between the two. There's plenty of stuff, at least in the STEM field, like diversity in clinical trials and research trials, and like being the person that helps like direct the policy towards that. That's super niche and something that's like a really expanding field, especially focusing on diversity given the current political climate. So definitely take advantage of the intersection between the two and like talk about how you're going to use your background in those diversity and inclusion efforts while you're in the STEM field, because those have a very clear connection if you can pull it. Okay,
I transferred schools this year from one that offers AP classes to ones that don't. Will that show up in my transcript? Yes, the college will factor in both schools. The top 100 colleges, the top probably 1,000 colleges in the United States have almost every single high school understand what they do and don't offer, updated on a yearly basis. They will be able to detect that. So that will not hurt your application at all. Okay, last one, and then we'll have answered 51 questions. What surprised you most during your first year of college? Let's go. Everyone's going to answer, and then we'll be done for the night. Blake, go first.
I have no idea, really. That was my shocked face. I don't know. Maybe the workload, especially on the quarter system, everyone's like, oh, syllabus week. But when the quarter system, if you guys don't know, is some schools do 2 semesters from like September to June. The quarter system is 3, and they're 10 weeks. So you have 10 weeks and then finals, and that's it. And it seems like it might not be that bad, but there's no syllabus week. You show up and they say, did you read the syllabus? Today's our first day of lecture. Your midterm is in 2 weeks. So like, you know, I started class on October 1st and I have a midterm this week. So it sort of just comes up really quick.
Max, go next.
I think the most important thing I learned was that you can become close with your professors. If you're having a hard week, you can email your professor and say, yo, the paper due on Friday, it's not going to happen. And they'll say, thank you for letting me know. I'll give you until next week. If you're having a hard time, they'll reach out to you. You can go into office hours and talk to them. They will, like, TAs will devote their life to helping you. People are like here to help you. They want you to learn. And a lot of my professors say, like, look, I don't really give below an A, but like you'll need to come in and work with me in order to earn that. Like you'll either get a B+ or an A, because I know it's hard right now, but like if you communicate with your professors, you're open with them, you ask them questions, you tell them when you're struggling, you're going to just have such a better experience.
Gabby.
Well, I'm still in my first year of college, and so for me, I had a really hard time adjusting to everything being online because I'm a much more like in-person type of person, like type of learner. But like I figured out really quickly that going to office hours will actually help, and your professors are super understanding and your TAs want to help you, and like everyone's there just to be super supportive and help you. So use that to your advantage. Don't just realize that you're struggling and just give up. You know, like go to office hours, put in the work, and your professors will recognize that. So, you know, don't be afraid just because it's unknown.
And really quickly, TAs will often, like if you go into office hours, they'll give you the homework answers if you go in. Like they'll walk you, they'll make you work on it, but you'll get 100% on the assignment. They will give you the answers. The professor will do the same thing.
Also, on what they're saying, it's never gonna hurt you if your professor knows your name out of your class of like 2 people, unless they know it because you're like messing around in class. But like I am in our classes, like we'll ask questions, etc. to like you want them to know, okay, Blake's the one who tries really hard in class. Oh, her essay is like pretty good, but I know she puts a lot of effort in. Maybe I'll round her grade up, you know? Maybe.
One last thing too, I've emailed professors at the end of classes and said, hey, I don't think my grade reflects how much work I did. Like I met with you all the time. I really think I tried really hard. I did my best. And I think my grade should reflect that. And they'll say, you're right, and bump you up. That's happened to me like 3 times now.
That's really good advice.
Okay,
I'm going to try that.
Close it out for everybody.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, on a similar note, perhaps, I know that based off of these questions that people have been asking, that you're all really, really high achieving and getting great grades. And an interesting surprise for my college experience is that sometimes in STEM courses like organic chemistry, it becomes the norm for everyone to do extremely poorly. And then all of a sudden you get these curved grades that are completely new to you. So I guess that's the surprise, is learning sort of how to be comfortable with messing up and then seeing it actually translate into being okay later.
Perfect. I want to thank everyone for their time tonight. Just so all the attendees know, we're going to work to potentially bring and do a college admissions officer panel. Right now, it's really hard to do in the fall just because they're doing admissions right now. So it's almost impossible to get an event like this set up for them. We might try to do one in the spring. The other thing I want to follow up is anyone who does your summer programs, you do get one-on-one time with a college admissions officer to design your application. So everyone here will try to do a college admissions officer panel. I'll try for the fall. It's just they're so busy right now. If not, we'll do one in the spring. And then people doing our summer programs will set up those one-on-one meetings with you with the college admissions officers. Thank you all so much for your time tonight. We're honored to help your sons or daughters out in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, my email is in the webinar chat. Please email with questions, concerns, some way we can help. And then use the benefits, use the SAT and the ACT training, use the essay review services, do the college probability modeling so you know what to focus on. So it's not awkward. I'm going to hang up on 3. Hey, panelists, thank you for your time. You were phenomenal. 1, 2, 3.